Hi, welcome to the SPS system demo. Um, I'm gonna start with a little bit background. I've been doing IT for over 16 years now, and this is something that fascinates me, not only to kind of like make sure that I can keep track of my supplies, but there has been many systems. Many people have contributed to this idea of having an automated system or some sort of automated system to kind of capture um, the information that you have to be able to not only monitor, but also make sure that you're almost to 100% reliable in any emergency. So what I want to do is actually kind of like go through a quick demo of what I've been doing. A little story. Back in 2021, I created one application. Sadly, it wasn't as visual as this one, but ever since this has come up more and more, and I had a lot of great conversation with other people in the prepper community. As you know, no one will say the name or no one would want to say their names publicly for their security and stuff like that. But I have hundreds of conversations about this in the past years. So let's get to it. This is the SPS demo. This is the survival preparedness system, or the way I want to call it. Um, this page, eventually, if you were to use the system, you don't need to see this page. This is just so people can actually just sign in and see the actual website, because everything runs in any Linux system. For those that know a little bit more about technology, then it just runs on Linux. I'm running everything on Ubuntu, and you can run this system on a Raspberry Pi or any old computer as long, it's fast enough to load a website. It should work. There's um, Windows. Microsoft Windows also has the ability to run Ubuntu in the backend, so you can run this in the backend. Now, a little disclaimer, there's going to be some integrations with like radio and other features that you can connect through USB, like Meshtastic. Um, I'm sorry for the confusion there, but there's going to be a lot of integrations, and I think this can be as big as the community wants to see it. It takes a lot of time to build this kind of stuff, and even though some people already contributed to the actual project and to for me to spend the time into creating more modules and that kind of stuff, it does take some time to actually build this, and it's not like a full-time job, but it does require some time. So let's get to it. The first thing that we're going to be doing is just logging in. We got to make sure that we have authentication. Not right now, we only have just a demo account. So once you sign in, the first thing that you're going to see is your dashboard. So I tried to make this towards my use case, but I'm sure that with your feedback, we can definitely get this a lot better, um, and including the visuals. The actual visuals themselves are easy to kind of like navigate and to see. They're not built for uh, a fancy looking website. Can it be done? Yes, but we're looking more for functionality and reliability than just having, a really good looking website that does nothing. Um, in the dashboard, we can start with like the overview of the inventory, and this is more like things that are not edible, right? Because we do have a module for pantry to actually store all the food items and that kind of stuff. Um, One of the things that I want to mention is that all this can be customized to send reports, maybe in PDF. It also can be customized to send email notifications. Uh, And I want to address the biggest factor here, which is security. Um, and the thing about the system is or the goal is to be fully offline. Um, to be able to download certain things, you still need to get online, right? And for those that don't know much about technology, a device only talks to the internet if it's designed to do so. So the system itself in the backend is running Ubuntu. So if Ubuntu sends some, analytics or something like that, then that's different. But the goal is to be fully offline, meaning that this shouldn't be exposed to the internet. This is not like a website that you're going to be giving access to people. I will be building a module so you can have your own custom address for accessing through your phone and that kind of stuff, through a proxy, but I'm still working on that end. Right now, I just wanted to kind of like have a functional system, and there's a quick toggle in the security section that you can just, you know, turn it on and it'll completely disable the entire internet, meaning that you can only access that system locally on your network, meaning at your house or in your Wi-Fi, but not outside of your house, and the system will completely block all the connections. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that might be skeptical about it, but that's what I want. I want more people to get involved into this and kind of like help me and contribute to the project so that way we can get it to something that is fully functional. So a little bit about this, we already kind of like saw the inventory. It just gives you kind of like categories and that kind of stuff. Um, we have the food pantry. Um, some people like to measure their pantry based on calories or based on time, based on weight. Um, it all depends. Here we only add like two different options, which is by calorie and by how many days of supply you have. The days of supplies is based on the family members. There's a family members module that you can add, the age and the weight of the person and how active they are, that kind of stuff, and that'll automatically get some information that it's on the internet. You can adjust this as you need to be able to actually get a accurate, but I don't think we're going to be accurate because, in any situation, our everything that we're going to be doing, it might be different. So we might be sedentary, and if something happens, we might be really active. So we have to kind of like address those issues now and make sure that you know, we don't we don't have false expectations. Here it'll tell you, the different categories that you have, and here you can see like snacks, fruits, um, and other stuff. Um, and this is a little bit closer, so you can actually see more. And it also tells you, like, in this example, we have about 58 items. There's like about 2 million calories, and it gives you like, about 10 months and 1 week. If there's any items that are about to expire, you got the 30 days or 90 days, you have them in there. These are about to expire, so they're not gonna show, in there, but it'll depends on the date. So you can set the dates to be able to um, see them as they're expiring. And like I said before, you can have the notifications via email and that kind of stuff to be able to get the information into an email saying, hey, you have this amount of items that are going to expire in the next 7 days, instead of just always going to the website, unless you're like, really involved into looking at the site every day. Going a little bit down, this is for more technical, but it just shows you the services and that kind of stuff on the backend system, how fast or how much, usage you got. One of the main things is the processor on the computer, so you can actually, use the actual SPS, and the modules. They take some processing power memory. We don't have a lot of memory in the system, and it's actually been built thinking that you're gonna run it in like really low end system or like a used laptop, a Raspberry Pi or something like that. Um, you can turn it off, you can turn it on, it doesn't matter. You can leave it on every day and just access the website when you're actually gonna do certain things in there. But you can just, at least have an overview of what's going on in there. Now for the inventory, we have the simple way of importing. So I know there's a lot of people that have spreadsheets, and you can definitely use the import CSV. CSV is just a format. Let's just think about it like a spreadsheet. And you can format the spreadsheet with the example. It tells you exactly which is the headers that uh, versus what the system can add, right? And if you have other fields, that's perfect. I just need your feedback and I can add them. And that way, in the next release, you can just go ahead and click import and it'll be in your system. You have the export. At any time you have an export feature, you can just do the same in the opposite way, which is just getting a spreadsheet with everything that you have in the inventory. It'll download with the same headers and that kind of stuff, but some people just like to have a spreadsheet and work that way. Moving to the food pantry, we have kind of like the same options in here. There's a lot of, you know, different ways that we can address like the columns, and it all depends on your feedback, because this is more of a collaboration between the people that have contributed, not everybody. And I'm hoping that everybody see the potential in this and can contribute to the project. Here you have the normal, items, and it gives you like the different ways of adding items to the actual pantry. You have, like, for example, let's say that you bought an item and you already have it on the inventory. You just need to add the new, information, like a new quantity, because each item might have different expiration dates and that kind of stuff. So you can just select it from here. Let's say that you want just baking soda, and it'll automatically kind of like add the fields that you had in the other item. It's just more like a copy and paste. But you can definitely add manually the new ones. And I'm working on the actual barcode. There's a lot of databases in the internet, and the main focus on this system is to be able to be fully offline. Now, there's a way to get automated barcode scanning, but that does require the equipment to be connected to the internet, so it can actually go out and pull the information from a big database. As more people get into the system, I'm sure that we can find a secure way of just pulling that information. And I'm gonna do my, due diligence on getting at least a big database in there with items with their nutritional values and all that stuff. I'm sure there are other systems out there that they can do it. Now it's just, a small group, so their needs are covered right now. And with your feedback, we can get this to the next level. You can add some of the information here and like purchase date, how much it costs. This was one of the feedback, how much it costs, because people want to see how much they're spending on, kind of like having an idea of how much they're spending. And we're working on putting some reports together, so people can see it. We have, different tabs. We got the nutrition, and it tells you a little bit more about the different nutrition values that we have. This is a sample database, sample information, so this is not realistic. to what I have or what anyone have. And we have the expiration. We can use them right here. You can delete them, but there's also a way to actually get an item. So let's say, for example, you have baking soda, but you're gonna use it. You can actually hit the consume and put the quantity and who did it, members of the family who did it, and breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and that kind of stuff. And what it'll do is it's gonna record it, and it's also gonna take it off the actual pantry. So that way you have an accurate estimate of what you have left in the actual system. You can add, as many items. My goal here is not to be like pro version, basic version, stuff like that. No, I just want to make sure that you have a full system, and with the contributions, I'm sure that you have everything in there. If I add a new module, you can be the judge of updating the system to the next release and having everything in there. Moving to the next one, I started working on this meal planner, but it's more of a receipt collection. And actually working on this, you can definitely have like different recipes and stuff like that from the internet. And there's one of the things is, if somebody's allergic, I want to make sure that when you do a receipt, you have at least an idea of what's going on. And, you don't kill somebody in the process. Here you have like, just a normal receipt. This is a sample data again, but you can have pictures, you can have, your title, you can have, the cook time and the prep time and how many people can be served. So you can definitely copy and paste information from your favorite recipes into the system, and they'll be there for you. And the other thing that you can do is you can print them. Um, in here, I'm gonna go ahead and show you that you can definitely print this as a PDF, and just print it like a normal, you know, letter size paper, and then just have it for your records with all the instructions and the ingredients. And if you have more feedback about what you want me to add to the system, feel free to let me know. Send it in the comments or reach out to us directly. And when I say us, it's just me. You can have an actual shopping list, so it'll tell you, how much you need from, for that item, and you can just copy it right now to the clipboard. But I'm working on a different approach, which is just more like pulling a PDF that can be sent to your email, and that way you can just open the PDF and have all the information, all the ingredients, and everything that you need to actually make an actual recipe. If you want to add a new one, you can again, you can choose pictures, you can have the recipe, you can have the category, the servings, prep time, cook time, descriptions. You cannot add a recipe if you don't add ingredients. And I'm sure that every recipe has ingredients, right? But if you want to modify what you're looking at in the internet, you can definitely do your own and have your own custom measurements and all that stuff in here. And you can do the allergens, anything that might have, maybe in your family. So that way you know, we don't cook something and accidentally give that to somebody that has an allergy. You can also add new ones, and the reason I added this one is because there's so many that it's kind of impossible to actually make a list uh, of all of them. And since the system is fully secure, it means that you're not sharing your data, so it's not like we can have a full database of all the allergens that everybody put in. That is not my goal. My goal is to keep the system secure and not sharing data. If it comes to that, then definitely we can create like a secure network in some way and give you the option to share some of the data. But again, that's not my goal, and I don't even want to do it because otherwise it'll kind of mess the project, and, and I'm sure that'll make some people unhappy, or kind of they might worry that their data is being shared, and the reality is that it's not. I'm using the system myself, and I don't want my data out there anywhere. Um, I do have like a little garden, so I kind of keep some information about garden. You can have like different ways of doing this, and I'm sure that there's feedback uh, out there from professionals that can definitely give me some input on what they need, or maybe we can change the whole thing to actually make it possible, right? And one thing that I wanted to kind of mention in the actual food is that we do have servings, right? So we do have 8 servings, and we do have some of the information on the ingredients. So like if we want only like less servings, then this is more of an estimate. So that way you can use less ingredients and then get the actual recipe to be for that amount of servings instead of the full serving size. And this has been really helpful with, the recipes that we can find online. And we don't really want to do the whole thing, but we want to kind of like scale down. And the same thing if we want to scale up, if we only have 8, but we have 16 now, then we can definitely go to more, and it'll tell you exactly what we need to do. These are estimates. If somebody has more uh, feedback on this, perfect. But jumping back to the garden, we have the garden information, and let's say that I have a garden. Let's say that I have, I don't know, a garage, and I'm just gonna do something there. I can go ahead and add a new garden, and I can name the garden. I can select from where the garden is or the area that we're doing. It gives you like the USDA zone. This helps with a lot of crops and stuff like that. It depends on the plant. I'm not a garden a professional in this, but it does helps. It gives you the actual square footage of where you're gonna plant that, and that way you can actually divide it in beds. So let's say that you have a 10 by 10, and you're gonna divide it into 4 beds, uh, one in each corner of the 10 by 10. Then you can definitely know what it's in there by just editing the actual um, the little garden that you have. You have beds, and you can definitely add the different beds and name them properly. The plants that you have in there, you can have a logbook of what's going on, and statistics. Statistics are more for like, let's say that I have a yield of, I don't know, 5 pounds of cucumber, then we can definitely have that in there, and it'll give you more insight of what you did to make it better. You have the different plans. Um, I have kind of put together a list of different plants, and how they normally grow, but it all depends on the seeds, the brand, and all that stuff that you have. But you can definitely add a guide, how to do it, the growing part, the timing, their care, and their harvest. You can have some indicators and stuff like that. When it turns light green, then you can take it off. So stuff like that. So it's up to you, and I'm sure that everything is just by your imagination. So if you want to have a lot more stuff, just comment and send me some feedback. Um, this video it's gonna be quite long, just because I want to make sure that I cover everything. I might break it up into different parts. We have a financial prep, and this actually I'm working on it. Um, this is just so you know personally what you have. Um, I'm working on actually turning this into a more of a financial an analysis tool, right? So it might look a little bit different maybe when you use it or the next release, but it might be more of a product that you can use to see, your spending, your budgets, and that kind of stuff. Um, Again, this information is must be offline. I'm not saying that you're going to be exposing this to the internet or you're going to host it in the cloud. Please don't host it in the cloud. I don't want you to host it in the cloud. Just grab a really cheap computer and have it at your house. Um, that you can back it up, sure, you can back up the system to like a thumb drive with not enough space on it. Um, and that'll be great. But please don't host it on the cloud. I don't want you to host it on the cloud for security reasons. You have, cash reserves, you have precious metals, barter goods, so you can add things that you might think that they have value in a specific scenario. Cryptocurrency, it does has, the latest crypto. It doesn't have like a standard list of all of them, but you can definitely, add them. And then it gives you kind of like a transaction history. So let's say that you use, a portion of it. You can record the usage and you're gonna have a history. But again, this is a work in progress, the financial prep, and I'm working with a lot of modules at the same time. So just be patient in there. The more feedback, the better. I do have another module, which is bug out and retreat. This is where we prepare the actual bug out bags, what they have and that kind of information, how much they weigh, and we have like pace routes, rally points, we have retreat locations, and that kind of information. I'm working on pulling a report, so maybe you can just pull a report that you can give to family members and that kind of stuff. There's a mixed opinion where we're going to be sharing with other people, and this is more of a you decision than me decision. And the more feedback you give me, the more we can modify the system to kind of like address those concerns or maybe add more features to each one of the modules. Again, I don't want you to host this in the cloud at all. I want you to have even a cheap computer might do it. And we have also vehicles. So at least you have some information here to be able to know what's going on. The next one is medical and health. Sadly, because of laws and all that stuff, I can't really put much into it. But yes, you can put like medical supplies. You can have like, people with conditions and allergies, some medical records, vaccinations. Sorry about that. Prescriptions, vital signs. It's more of a little, just more a little kind of hospital-like um, intake. So that at least you know what's going on with everybody in your group. So it's not like you can add just one person, but you can add like multiple family members and attach their information to this right here. Um, so it'll definitely expand based on your feedback, and I can modify this as however you want. Um, but we do have to kind of like get all the feedback and put it all together so everybody's happy. We don't want to make different versions because otherwise it just gets too labor intensive, and I think the project can kind of go sideways. So we're going to be doing one single project. We're going to update the SPS modules based on the feedback. It's just more about making sure that we have all the information that you need to get it there. Some of the information we can just click, maybe hide, and it'll hide those other options that people might not want. But it's all based on your feedback and your contribution to the actual project. Um, just because it might take a little bit more time to implement things that are not realistic. And you have a quarantine and installation log, for any situation. I did see this in a Reddit post. Somebody wanted to have kind of like an energy and power, and this is more like like a calculator that you can just input, your information here. I'm not a professional. I'm not an electrician or anything like that. Especially I'm not a professional in anything here. This is my own opinions, and this is, a collection of different tools that you can just use in one single dashboard and one single web application. So there might be some things that are from other repositories in GitHub and other uh, contributors and project developers and stuff like that. So all the credits to them. Um, However, in the front end, everything is built in a way to make your life easier. You can definitely have different things here, like, generators and different calculations. You can add common devices. This one, it's just gives you different information about the actual item or the actual device. And again, this is going to grow as much as feedback comes. So that way we can have a proper calculation of, power and solar and the fuel log and that kind of stuff. Now, this is one of the sections that I like the most. Is one of the modules, is media. Anything happens, we can go by, but eventually entertainment is something really important to kind of keep moral and make sure that everybody's happy, right? So I've been building different things, like for example, videos. You can have your own library of videos and stuff like that. You can definitely get some of the videos from different platforms and just get the URL. Do make sure that where you're downloading those videos, it's one, it's legal, and second, you're not like, violating their terms and conditions. So I leave this up to you. I just showing you, the functionality of SPS. You can definitely go here and you can, you know, paste the video that you want, and you can go ahead and click download it. And what it'll do is in the back end, it'll just download that video, and it'll save it for that offline scenario, right? Where internet is nowhere to be found. You will have that information in your system. Now, some of the videos are really big, so just be patient depending on the device that you're running SPS because it might take quite some time. Um, I'm not a sponsor or anything like that of city prepping, or anything, so I just grabbed that video. Even though they have really good information, I'm not a sponsor or anything like that. And you can definitely have that video, and you can go ahead and kind of like go through it, and let's say that you want to view the video that you downloaded,
So
you
on
can
Impact, we
definitely
get a
do
ton
it.
of questions on which Bible translation you should read, like which ones are good.
So you can have a full screen and you can just watch the videos that you downloaded in your library. It tells you how much storage you have used before with the other videos. So just be conscious of your space, so that way you don't fill the device and you cannot do anything, right? Because we're still working with some sort of a computer device. So the storage is one of the things. You can do the same thing with an upload. So you have like library of videos, you can definitely upload them to the actual system. Now, this module looks this way, but with more feedback, I'm sure that we can expand into this. Remember, it's functionality versus, the good looks and that kind of stuff. It's making sure that the system works. We do have the pictures. We can upload pictures. We can create albums. If for some reason one of the pictures doesn't show up for any reason, we can rescan the library. It'll also give you kind of like, some information, how much storage you have or using. We have the next module, which is documents. And this is something that I'm working right now, actively. And it's fully, there's LibreOffice, there's many open source libraries out there. Now, the thing is that we're not trying to use Docker, right? Because if for some reason something happens and there's no internet, you cannot download Docker. And for those that don't know Docker or what it is, think about like a container where you can have multiple pieces of a system running. Um, in reality, I'm not gonna go into tech talk, but we're trying to make this really, really offline. So we can do like PowerPoints, we can do like normal documents and spreadsheets. If we want to do like spreadsheet, we can definitely start with a spreadsheet and it'll look like a spreadsheet, right? Um, Everything is offline. There's no APIs being called to the internet, and that's why it might look this way. So you might be used to like different softwares that they look a little bit better. Now, with your feedback, you can tell me, what you want to see in there, and I'll be happy to kind of like update it and make it more functional and more pretty in a way. We have the downloads, right? Why? Because we might have like, some people might not be tech savvy or anything like that, but in a really bad case, where there's no internet, we want not only to download like, documents, pictures, and videos, we want to download also, like images. So let's say that you want to rebuild a computer and you need the operating system, then at least you have the operating system here. Do note that some operating systems that you can download, they're quite big, so just be careful with the space, right, that you have in your device running SPS. Offline sites, this is one of my favorites, and it's because you can definitely go, for example, and open a website, right? Let's say that I go to like yahoo.com, right? And I want this specific page. People call it different ways. I call it offline websites, but people call it scraping and there's other things. Again, just be careful. You don't violate, terms of services or anything like that from where you're getting that website to become offline. But let's say that I get this website, right? And I go to the actual offline sites. I can just type in this. There's different options, right? There's one, two, and three. Just be really careful because when you visit a website, you have so many things attached to that website that you might not know. So the system is going to try to just make the website offline, but if you select two and three, what it'll do is that it'll make the website offline and it'll start getting all the links on the website and the links of the links. So you might be like literally trying to make the entire Yahoo or the entire site offline. So just be really, really careful with that. Some pages are built so you cannot make them offline. So that's just a little disclaimer there, so you don't have any bad feedback because the site you cannot get it. In here, what I did is I did a couple of them, and you can definitely see like the different versions, and you can see like some of them are still running, um, or they might not being able to be downloaded, right? So you can delete them too. You can open them. For example, this one is completely offsite, offline, and you have full functionality of it, right? Um, of, like whatever you scrape, right? It's not gonna work as a normal website because there's other things attached to it and authentications and stuff like that for some of the sites. So just be careful with that. Now, some of the sites here didn't open just because they're not capable of doing it, or this is a sample database, so just be uh, mindful about the information that I'm showing here. You can use the system based on your judgment. Um, just be really careful. That's all. I don't condemn anything illicit, illegal, or anything like that. Just be really careful with what you use it for. Now the next one is this one has been in everywhere, and it's a project called Kiwix, and they have their own interface and that kind of stuff. I do want to make sure that the whole UI or the way we see SPS looks kind of similar. So I kind of compose the whole front end instead of just using the front end of Kiwix. However, you can still use Kiwix databases and that kind of stuff. So I just call it the library manager because you can have all the libraries from Kiwix. The project's free, it's open source. You can download it to your computer. You don't even need SPS to do this. And there's like, you know, videos and videos of how to get Kiwix and how to have an offline library and that kind of stuff. The only thing that I did here was to kind of like make it a little bit easier for people to use it. And you can see here that you can have like many libraries from them from Kiwix. The way it'll work is that you can download the library and it'll automatically show in your under my libraries and you can see the different ones that you have. Again, some libraries are really huge in size, so just be mindful for the device that you're running on. For example, the first one right here is like quite big, even though it has 14,000 um, articles. They might have videos, they have a lot of pictures, so just be really careful when you download them. So that way, on the top right, you can see that we're trying to keep track of, how much, space we're using. You can always go back to dashboard all the way to the bottom. You can see the total space that you're using, right? The more feedback I get, the better the system is going to get, and the project, has so much potential. You're going to be really happy and pleased that you're kind of like collaborating with this because it can expand as much as imagination goes, right? As long as it can be, coded, then or developed, right? Then it'll be good. We have the next one, right? We can definitely see that the billing reader is active. That's pretty important. So that way we know that things are going to be working when I click the access the library. And it looks a little bit different than Kiwix, but it's still the same kind of thing, right? Same functionality. You do have here the different options for the libraries that you got, the articles that you got or the ones that you downloaded. So you have, for example, let's say, you know, um, this one right here, you can see the entire site, just like Kwix. Kudos to the developers, to their project, all the credits to them, and to everybody that has contributed to that project too over the years. But here you can see that it's working fully, and you can go through like the different, links and that kind of stuff. Kiwi 6 more like an offline site, but these offline sites that Kiwix have are specific. So that's why the other module that we have in SPS is so you can go to that other site that Kiwix doesn't have, and then you can make your copy. And just be careful, And I know I'm repeating myself in this um, demo about the legality and all that stuff. So just be mindful with, what you do. Just make take your decision and your own judgment and, you know, do your thing, right? Um, just to make it easier, I do have like, you can go back to home, back and home and that kind of stuff. This right here on the bottom, it's for the actual articles that you're working on. It is not to navigate outside of this, but to see it this way, right? Um, there's a lot of things that we can do here. Like for example, like if you go to the library manager, right? Then we can go back and we're going back to the menu, to the dashboard. Now, this has caused some controversy because AI and that kind of stuff, but don't worry about it. This is called Olama. Olama is a project that allows you to download AI models, and they run locally on the system, on SPS in the backend, right? And I'm trying to focus on trying to kind of like get rid of that concern of sharing your data, right? Everything that happens in the AI chat is in the device that you are running this, not on the internet or anything like that. Here you can definitely download like different models and make it easier for you. So you can just click download models and it'll show you like Olama is running. It'll show you to the different things that you have here, the ones that you can download and stuff like that. If you have like a old computer, old device, you might want to try them out. Not all of them are gonna be working because they're so big and they're complex models and they need a lot of processing power. So some of them are gonna work, some are not gonna work unless you have a device that is capable of running those models. Again, with your feedback, this can be modified, this can be made better, and just make a comment, reach out to us, and that way we can kind of like address your concerns or make sure that the system is actually updated properly, right? There's the install module, so if let's say that you're running out of space or something like that, you can definitely delete it. There's a AI assistant mode, and this is really important because by default it's not enabled, but you can definitely tell the AI model to tap into your own database. Again, this is not going to the internet, your information is safe, it's not like sharing anything with no one. This is running on your device. Please do not run it on the cloud. Do not run it on the cloud because there's many security issues that might come if you try to do that. If you know what you're doing, awesome. I'm not gonna stop you from it, but I'm just giving you a disclaimer that don't run it on the cloud for safety reasons. Once it's in the cloud, it's not yours. It's the cloud's provider's owner. Here you can have like different things, like for example uh, your database of your pantry and that kind of stuff. You can ask the AI, hey, how much of this I have? And it'll go through the database and it'll say, oh, okay, you have this amount of items in the database. But if you don't want the model to talk to the database, you can just turn it off here. Now, in a really offline scenario where you don't have anything, you can download models that are designed for coding and you can allow the actual AI to talk to the backend system, which I don't recommend at all unless you know what you're doing. And the AI can actually fix the actual SPS. It can, based on prompts, it can build new modules and it can build different things. Now, I do not recommend it because you're gonna break SPS, and I'm putting it out there because there might be curious people that are gonna try to use it, and if they break it, they might know how to fix it, or they might reinstall the system, right? Do know that if you break SPS, then and you didn't have any backup, then there's a lot of consequences in that. Why did I add it? Well, it's up to you to make that decision, right? I added because I'm developing the actual SPS, and it helps a lot when things go wrong and there's so much code to review that it's easier just to ask the AI and it'll help you. But yeah, don't think about that as an option if you don't want to break the system, right? Now, we can definitely go here. And let's say, for example, you know, now you're gonna see this right here, but the thing is slow, right? Because this is not a device. This is not like a 10-year-old device that I'm running SPS on, and it'll take some time. Like if the computer doesn't run, um, fast enough, um, this is gonna create some delays and that kind of stuff. So for that, what I normally do is just to make sure that we have models, right, that are small enough for that computer to run. And I'm not saying that you need to have like the low end, cheapest, or bad device. There's a lot of computers out there you can get, and they they they're gonna be fast enough, right, to be able to make this functional. Everything else runs really fast. It's just more like the AI that uses a lot of processing power. Sometimes the model itself might not have information that you're looking for, so it might not even tell you anything. So it's all about the model that you downloaded from the internet and the information that it has available to be able to help you. If you download, the one of the biggest models, you might have a lot of information that will help you in bad situation. But the speed, it depends on the device that you're running the actual um, SPS, right? Again, this is really slow, so just be mindful about that. If you have anything that can be improved, please give me feedback. Now, I do for a living IT, and one of the things that I've been working for years is a PBX system, which is a private exchange for like a phone system, right? Um, and you can definitely have a phone system. All this SPS works by using uh, the normal connection, like Wi-Fi and that kind of stuff. Let's say that you are in a building and you can, share Wi-Fi to the next building and run it in solar, right? Because there's no internet, there's nothing. At least you can use like your phone with a soft phone. It's like an application that you can download. There's many free. You can download and you can have calls, from phone to phone, just like a normal call. I know there's Meshtastic, there's LoRa, which we're actually implementing into the SPS. It's just more a matter of development and making sure that it's easy to use and to set up, um, because not everybody's, is tech savvy. And I include myself in there, not just because I have experience. It means that I know everything. I don't, and I'm not a professional in everything either. So your feedback is really appreciated. You can have your SPS, PBX, so you can have as many extensions you want. Now, if the device is really slow, it could be that the calls might not work. Now, I'm saying that using a Raspberry Pi, things are gonna be okay. So if you're able to get like a Raspberry Pi, or something like that, device, with those specifications, I'm sure that it'll work, right? Because it just runs Asterisk in the backend, and many people might know Asterisk. There's so much documentation about Asterisk online. I just make sure that we have an interface that is easy to work with. We have extensions, we have trunks. For those that don't know, trunks are to be able to connect this to like actual providers, which we don't want, but it's an option. um, so you can have your own phone system, right, that you control. However, you still need a provider if you're going to use it with internet. The goal OSPS is to be offline. So as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, or maybe you can use high-low, which is like a Wi-Fi kind of thing, similar to LoRa. It works like, it has antennas that you can put around, and that's probably a different topic that it's outside of the scope of this video. But you have like ring groups, you have routes, you have IVR. IVR is just the greetings, like thank you for calling this person. I don't think we're gonna be using that in a really bad scenario, but we can always do it. And then you have your monitor, right? You can see that Asterisk is running. These ports are open because that's how your phone, um, if even if you don't have internet, as long as you're connected via Wi-Fi into SPS, you're gonna be okay because this is how the calls are routed to through the system, and you can call a person to another person, right? And for example, you can have cell phones and you can connect, SPS, and you're gonna be able to talk to other people. I find it really helpful, um, especially in like the commercial side. But like in a scenario where people don't want to use ham radios all the time, um, because of the signal, stuff like that, or whatever concerns you might have of not using a ham radio. I'm sure that everybody might have a different opinion about it, and the use case might be different all the time. But this is something pretty helpful in that scenario. In case you have a point-to-point connection, I know there's devices that can send the signal for miles as long as line of sight. So you might be with somebody in a location 2, 3 miles, and if you can get connection to that person, you can always use this system and call them and have a normal phone conversation. Um, we have the radio station, and I'm actually working on this one too. The cool thing about this is that we can broadcast audio. You can broadcast like your songs and that kind of stuff inside of the network, of course, because the purpose of SPS is to be offline. But as long as you have um, a connection to the system, you can definitely browse with a phone or like another computer, a tablet, anything like that. You can always uh, hear what's going on, and you can have like right now I have just sample music. So you can have whatever playlist you want. So like if you have a whole list of things running in your system, you can definitely have a media library where you download and upload your songs and that kind of stuff. Now there's music jingles and emergency. I'm trying to fix the model because the emergency is more of a, you're broadcasting and then you need to say something to somebody or to whoever is listening, right? Um, the way it works is that it'll activate um, in the backend, it'll stop the music and it'll say the message. And when I say it'll say the message, it means that you can write an actual message and it'll kind of like convert that to text to speech. Because of the limitations of the different voices, I'm still working on this. So that way you don't hear a voice that sounds really creepy instead of just be like an actual emergency information, right? You can definitely go live, and this is what I'm doing right now. So you can definitely hear the music. You have a little kind of radio station where you can go live and you can give the news to people and that kind of stuff. So the actual limitation here is your ideas and your feedback. So the more you can collaborate, the better. You can have different hosts. I think because of the way the system works in the backend, it only allows you to do one stream at a time, and I'm working on that. You can have shows, so you have different playlists. You can set, a playlist, for each day and times and set it up that way, and the different stations that you want to run. Now this is under development, so the people that are using it right now are giving a lot of feedback, and it's not something that is working at this moment while I'm making this video. But it'll definitely be more functional if I say that. Now, this is one of the biggest thing that I was, you know, there was so much feedback. I was using OpenStreetMaps before. It's just an open source system that we can have maps and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't functional, so I kind of like integrated different OSM in the backend, um, and kind of like displaying it the way you you might use like other maps, because the data itself, a lot of the data is based on the different providers. We might not be able to get all the data, but at least we can get maps. And if you have like a LoRa connected to the actual device, you can use the GPS function, right? Uh, Here you can see the map, and the way it's built is that in the backend, on the bottom left side, you can see tiles. So the way the maps work is in tiles, like little squares or little pictures, right? So the more you zoom in, the tiles are going to be changed into that view. So it's more like a zoom in and zoom out. That's all, what I can say, to make it simple. But you can definitely go to, like, say, for example, Wyoming, and as you keep zooming in, the SPS, what it does in the backend, it just uh, gets a copy of those little pictures, and you can keep, like, expanding all the way to the actual street level, so that way the different streets and that kind of stuff. I'm sure that if you have another device and you want to share with somebody, they might take a picture in that scenario. But there's other options here that you can definitely go and click download, and you can have, like, under settings, you have GPS tracking and that kind of stuff. I'm still working on some of the functionality, and all the feedback has been great. So I appreciate everybody that has contributed to getting the maps from the OpenStreetMaps to organic map. And it has been a game changer because we not only have a way of getting the actual street level map, but we can also have satellite, and it'll definitely change the whole thing because now we can actually see what's going on in there, have a better visual. The other option, and this is some people just want to have about, get some information about the terrain. So you can click terrain, and the same thing. You can see that the number of tiles on the bottom left side, they keep increasing because you're literally, as you're navigating, the system is actually getting all those tiles, right? Um, there's ways of downloading them. They're free. OSM has free packages and that kind of stuff. But however, if you're not gonna go, outside of the US, then I don't see why you're gonna waste the storage unless you have the storage, right? But here you can definitely see like the rain and the different rivers, lakes, and that kind of stuff. Um, the more you give feedback, the better it's gonna become. And I have tried. I use it myself, and I use my own um, cell phone, and the GPS works great. I'm working with the LoRa and other devices to be able to do this fully offline. But you can definitely do that. You can pin different locations, and I don't know, just keep, the more feedback, the better. Here on the right side, you can go back to your home. You have different tools, right? Um, Under the tools, you have the family profiles, so family members. You can add as many members you have in your family or in your group. You can have their own documents. You can have emergency contacts and that kind of stuff. Um, you have one of the other tools is calculations, right? You got different calculators here. If you have more calculators, we'll add them all in this module, so that way you can do any sort of calculation without being a mathematician, right? Here you can have some information, right? So let's say that I want to know about the caloric needs, then you can have all the information here, and then click calculate, and it'll tell you how much calories you need for a day for those parameters. You have rations, you have food supply, water, which is really, really important. And this is actually expanding a little bit more and more. So we're definitely going to. to get your feedback and implement those in there with power and energy and on all the other ones, even construction, like, concrete and lumber and foundation and anything that you can think of, right? The more feedback you can give, the better. Um, and as more people collaborate, I'm sure that, we can put the time into it and make it a lot better. Um, this one was requested by one of the people that are collaborating with the project, and it was like simulations, right? So based on the information that you have in your pantry, you can definitely have a simulation. So you can select the simulation. Please give feedback if there's some information that doesn't match. Remember, this might change a lot um, by your use case. So, calculations might be a little bit different. So your feedback, it's appreciated. And normally the turnaround, it's like, probably like about a day or two um, to actually make new modules and that kind of stuff for SPS. But it might take a couple more days. So I don't want to give you false expectations that if you have a feedback, it'll be on the next release. So we're gonna be trying to. We've been doing releases for quite a long time. Every 2 days, but the more feedbacks, the better. But it also might be um, it might take a little bit longer. But in here, you can have like power outage and you can run the simulation. It'll tell you depending on what you have. You do have food, but you don't have a lot of water, you don't have energy or fuel or medical supplies or communication, or maybe you don't even have documents to actually do that. But there's a what if mode that you can definitely say, okay, so I was like not prepared, but now if I get this amount of calories, an amount of water and fuel and cash and stuff, we can run the what if and it'll tell you a little bit better. And that way you have an idea of, what you should be doing. It also gives you some strong recommendations and that kind of stuff. Um, you know, just based on the recommendations by FEMA and other places. Yeah, again, the more information you get, the more feedback you give me, the better it'll become. But you have a lot of different scenarios, and we can find out what the scenario looks like, get information, and kind of like compose another simulation for that specific scenario. Um, Again, this is just an energy and a calculator. Just need to update the UI. Going back to the general settings, right? We do have a way to there's a lot of companies that you can set up the system to send emails. I use SMTP to go. I'm not doing a sponsorship or anything like that to them. It just works. So you can definitely have this out there and set your account yourself. It doesn't have to go through us or anything like that. Now we do for the collaboration that normally happens to put all this together and kind of like improve it, then I think it is good enough to kind of like give this out as an option. So if you're interested in having your own emails, then perfect. um, and then you can pull reports. You can have like different things that happen automatically for your pantry, for your inventory, for things that are going about to expire, or whatever logic you want me to get into this. I can do that. But again, the purpose of SPS is to be offline. So be mindful that if there's no internet, this might not work. We have the system. It'll tell you what it's running and some system information, like the database size, the Olama service if it's running, the web server, which is Nginx. You got Asterisk, which is for the phone system, and then we have fail to ban. For those that don't know, fail to ban is more of a think about it like a firewall that is running on the SPS system, and you can customize it. By default, it only allows the local subnet, meaning that it only allows the local devices. For example, you have your modem from the internet provider, and you can connect your phone, your tablet, your TV. So that's your network, right? Internet is something completely different. So don't mix them together because internet is one thing and your local network is another thing. Here you can see like the different things that are happening. The SPS API, the API is what's happening in the backend, how it gets all the data and it moves around in the backend. The OSM tiles are the ones that shows the little squares with a picture of the maps. The geocoder is what gets the information from UPS to the map and it tells you real time where you're walking and that kind of stuff, or you're driving. Location, this is for the inventory. Uh, I moved them here initially. Some people like it, some people hate it. We're working on maybe moving that, but if you have more feedback, that's awesome. Same thing with document categories and that kind of stuff. You can add more categories and they'll show up automatically. The AI settings, this is something that we covered before, but it'll tell you the different models that are installed, the ones that you can download. You can download custom models if you have, a better system that can handle bigger models. You have the PBX system. This is by default. I wouldn't change anything here unless you know what you're doing, especially because this is only working on locally. So don't worry about it. You can mess up with this, but just be mindful that, you might break it. Yeah, the security, this is for the fail to ban. So you can definitely have, let's say that somebody that you share the network with, it's kind of like watching too much movies and you want to cut them off, or you want to do something, you can find them and you can just block them from here. Uh, there's a lot of use case. That's the first one that comes to mind. But this is more for to protect, like, somebody from a network is just trying to poke at the SPS, at least Feltoban will kind of block it. Again, feedback is welcome. I'm not super professional in everything. I don't claim that I have all the knowledge in the world. So your feedback, it's gonna make this really, really functional and ready for your use case. Deployment, this is a way you can definitely back this up to your right now you can back it up to like different services. And this is a copy of your data. Now, this is disabled by default. Again, the purpose of this is to be offline. I'm working on this to be able to like have a feature to download it to like a thumb drive or something. It all depends on how much data you have in the actual SPS. So just be mindful that if you want to do a backup of 1 GB, remember that you need, in that backup device, you need at least 1 GB free. Uh, Otherwise, it won't work because you're not going to have enough storage. If you have more questions, just feel free to ask, right? So that way we can add more. If you trust other providers and you want me to include them, just let me know. I'll try to add them so that way you can have at least a backup. But again, I do not recommend to just run this on the cloud. It is not meant for the cloud. I don't want you to try and host it on the cloud and uh, just be mindful that your data is private and the purpose of SPS is to be offline. Now for the updates and that kind of stuff, yes, you can get the device, to download the update, and I'm gonna also make a feature so you can just use a thumb drive and put it on, so that way you can have it like air gapped and never touch the internet. But still, again, for some functionality, you still have some needs internet to download certain things. But once you're done, you can just go ahead and go to the next module, which is the network privacy. And this one, we implemented this, I think it was right from the get-go, just to make sure that you can lock all connections out to the internet. If you turn it on, right now it's off because it's a demo. But if you're using it and you want to keep using it locally and you don't want the system to talk to the internet at all and you want to be extra secure, You can either unplug it from the from the internet or from the Wi-Fi, or you can just toggle that and disable it, and it'll lock all the connections to the internet, so that way your data, you can, you know, sleep at night and don't worry about it. Again, the misconception that putting a device on the internet doesn't mean that all the data is going to get out. Um, there, there's always a factor where somebody has an interest, right? And because SPS is purpose is to be offline, not exposed to the internet, and I do not recommend that you run it uh, on the cloud. Then you can just be okay that nothing's gonna get out there, your documents, your data, or anything like that. Just be mindful. Like if you know what you're doing, just make your decision. But please be mindful that SPS is meant to be run offline, not online. In the sense that you're exporting and importing data and that kind of stuff, right? I've been using this for much longer than this video, and no data is getting anywhere. Um, and I think the data itself, it's more of a user issue. The person that is using the system that tried to make modifications in a way that compromise the system, not the system itself. Again, the system is not meant to be run on the cloud. It's meant to be run on any device that you can get a hold of. Even if you have like a old computer, just use the old computer. If you want to buy a new computer, that's up to you. If you want to buy a computer that can run better models of AI, perfect, that's up to you. But just be mindful that data breaches and that kind of stuff doesn't happen because you just plugged something in the in the network and it went out to the internet and it just spilled all the information. It doesn't work that way. I do have experience on that on the cybersecurity side for many years. So um, let's just keep an open mind that the system and the project is not meant to send data anywhere, and your data is safe. Mine has been safe for too long, I would say. So as long as you don't try to mess up and expose the system online, you're good to go. And I'm gonna wrap up this video here. It's been quite a while. I hope, if you get to this point and you see the value and all the effort that has been put into this, not only by me developing, but also by the people that have contributed. There's many of them um, that no one so far wants to say, I gave this feedback, right? But anonymous feedback and email feedbacks and that kind of stuff, just feel free to do it that way. Your name is not going to be anywhere, and whoever contributes, it definitely um, will make this a lot better. We do have in the roadmap to fix a couple bugs and a couple things, but also add the Meshtastic, hide the high-low, LoRa, and SDRs for like radio to actually hear transmissions and stuff like that. Um, if we get this in the next quarter, then we're going to be also adding ham radio capabilities and stuff like that. You do remember that some of the equipment that you might use might need some license, or you're not gonna get this and start broadcasting music out there because of legalities and stuff like that. So just be really careful what you do with it. And again, this is meant to be offline, not like to make a radio station or to have uh, a ham radio. um, and you know what I mean. It's just be mindful how you use it. Um, there's no ill intent in using SPS for bad stuff. It's for your um, to help you and to help your family and to help everybody that is on the actual community. And if you have any feedback, please let me know. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching the whole video. and looking at the different functionality that SPS can provide to you and how much potential this can have with your feedback and your help.